Hi friends! Today I'm going to show you how to write a 2-point response. The very first thing that I want to do is take a look at my task. How does the nun change the narrator's attitude about where she lives? So we're talking about what the nun did, how she changed the narrator's attitude. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my text and I'm going to think to myself, where in the text, actually I'm going to turn my phone, excuse me, where in the text did I find information about the nun? It wasn't on this first page, I remember that. On the second page, she was talking a lot about Mango Street, but I remember towards the end of the passage right here is where she started to talk about the nun, all the way up to the end here. So I'm just going to run my finger down and make sure there's no other information here about the nun. And I'm going to reread the part that focuses in on their exchange. Once, when we were living on Loomis, a nun from my school passed by and saw me out front. The laundromat downstairs had been boarded up because it had been robbed 2 days before. And the owner had painted on the wood, "Yes, we're open," so as not to lose business. "So where do you live?" "There," I said, pointing to the 3rd floor. "You live there?" "There." I had to look to where she pointed. The 3rd floor, the paint peeling, the wooden bars Papa had nailed on the windows so we wouldn't fall out. "You live there?" The way she said it made me feel like nothing. I knew then I had to have a house, one I could point to. But this isn't it. The house on Mango Street isn't it. For the time being, Mama says. Temporary, says Papa. But I know how these things go. So I have enough evidence now to show how the nun changed the narrator's attitude. So the first thing I want to do is really think to myself, well, how did the nun change her attitude? First, she seemed to really like her place, but then she started to kind of feel ashamed of it. So that's what I'm going to write. So my first step is to restate my question. How does the nun change the narrator's attitude about where she lives? So who am I talking about? The nun. So I'm going to start with those words. I'm not going to start with a question word. I'm not going to start with what. I'm not going to start with how. I'm going to start with who or what I'm talking about, and that's the nun. The nun changed the narrator's attitude about where she lives because, and then I'm going to really think about what that answer is. The nun changed the narrator's attitude about where she lives because, and I'm going to pause here because I really want to think about the answer. Well, we're talking about changing. When you're talking about changing, that means it had to have been one way and now it's another. So I'm going to have to talk about how it was before and how it is now. So I'm going to say because she used to like her place on Loomis, and now she feels ashamed of it. So I restated and I answered my question. Now I need 2 pieces of text evidence. So here is where I'm going to go. So what am I going to say? For example, I think I'm going to use the one about her feeling like nothing. So I'm going to use a transitional phrase. For example, there goes the bell. The nun said, Like the motorcycles? You live there. I think I'm going to quote the whole thing. The way she said it made me feel like nothing. So I copied it directly from the text exactly, and I put quotation marks around it. Now I need another piece of an example because I'm using two examples. So I'm going to start with also. That's my second transitional phrase. Also, I'm going to talk about this, how she feels like she needs a house she can point to. But I'm going to use my own words for this one. So I'm going to say, after the narrator talks to the nun, she feels like she needs a house she can point to. So I've included the second detail, there goes the bell. And now I'm going to kind of explain it a little bit. She wants to be proud of where she lives. And so I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to look at my whole response. I restated my question in a topic sentence. I answered it and I used two examples. I'm going to read the whole thing through. The nun changed the narrator's attitude about where she lives because she used to like her apartment, but now she feels ashamed of it. For example, the nun said, "You live there?" The way she said it made me feel like nothing. Also, after the narrator talks to the nun, she feels like she needs a house she can point to. She wants to be proud of where she lives. So I've met the criteria. I answered the question with a topic sentence, and I have two pieces of text evidence. This is how you do a short response.